A few news posts ago, Bungie announced the return of a fan-favorite game mode called Rift, not to be confused with the Warlock's class ability. I was ecstatic to hear that news, but then fear and anxiety overtook me because... Oh, that whole clip. Destiny 2 was not built to handle Rift. Today I'm going to show you 7 builds that will scientifically dominate in Rift when it returns. I cannot express to you how freaking hyped I am about this game mode coming back because it will do 2 things. 1, it will force players to play the objective, and 2, it will put clear-cut focuses on speed and defense builds. But Misum, I hear you ask, how do you know these builds you're about to show me will be good if you haven't played Rift yet in this game?
Well, my theoretical friend, using the power of a cooperative 12-man Twitch chat and a private match,
we made our own sort of game mode to simulate how Rift will be played. Let me quickly explain how this works, then we'll jump right into the builds. I call this game Conquest, and the rules are very simple. It's just normal control, but you have to capture zones in order. So, whatever side you spawn on, that's your base. And from there, you have to capture B before moving on to the enemy space. So you are not allowed to capture zones out of order. So if you spawned at A and you haven't captured B, you cannot attack or capture C. This forces players to stick together and fight for control over the middle of the map, which is pretty similar to how Rift will be played. Of course, there will be a few, let's call them glitches, but most of the time people play along well enough to make this work. Now onto the builds. Like I mentioned, there are 2 main types of builds: offense and defense. Offensive builds, of course, look to secure the spark and then push into the enemy's rift and dunk it, while defenders are looking to control the spark spawn location and their own rift zone. I know most players will want to be the hero dunking the rift, but from my time playing this custom game, I learned that if you aren't controlling space, it is very easy to get steamrolled. So even though defenders won't get the credit they deserve, their job is absolutely as important, maybe even more than the spark dunkers themselves. So let's start with the defensive build. Bungie announced a nerf to the ever so oppressive Lorentz driver, nerfing its body shot damage by 20%. This, combined with the universal reduction in non-perk damage bonuses, like empowering rifts or charge with light, means it's basically impossible for Lorentz driver to ever dominate through body shots like it used to. But not its older brother Arbalest. Arbalest will retain its body shot damage amount, and even though it's still affected through the 15% nerfs to empowering rifts and charge with the lights and such, its 166 base body shot damage is still enough to kill guardians with most resiliences. This build stacks damage bonuses on damage bonuses, using Mantle of Battle Harmony, a solar hand cannon, and the Arbalest on Middle Tree Dawnblade. We can comfortably pile damage bonuses on top of each other while still supplying ourselves with healing from our grenades. Listen, some of you will call this tactic scummy or cheesy, and you are absolutely right. Look, I'm just the messenger, okay? Don't blame me when Bungie is clearly still allowing this tactic by specifically not nerfing Arbalest at the same time they are nerfing Lorentz driver. Just grab a drink, enjoy the ride, and how about we talk about a permanently invisible hunter build to counter this, huh? Rat King is perhaps one of the most slept on weapons in Crucible. It's fully automatic, decent range, 0.6 second TTK, and kills grant you invisibility. And if that weren't enough, if you have the catalyst, reloading after a kill will completely heal you and grant better recoil control. And if that weren't enough, running this with more than one player grants a passive increase to fire rate, handling, reload speed, magazine size, sexiness in general. But wait, there's more. Call in the next 30 minutes and we'll throw in the invisibility being counted as void invisibility, absolutely free. So yes, this weapon is just oozing with hidden synergies and power. Of course, Rat King can't really do range, so to not only provide it with some flexibility and make the TTK even faster, if you run Rat King with a precision frame bow with quick access sling and a bit of practice, you can bow headshot then swap immediately into your Rat King for cleanup. Because most of your kills are happening from the Rat King, try to get a bow with Harmony so that when you swap back to it, it'll have a plus 20% bonus damage, so your next arrow acupuncture is even more deadly. I run this with the Graviton forfeiting for increased invisibility duration and melee recharge with this setup, but really, you could run this with anything that synergizes with invisibility. I could easily see an argument being made for the arguably just a little bit terrifying Omnioculus as it comes in with the next season. But now that I've blessed you with this build, allow me to counter it with another. Alright, so show of hands if Witherhoard makes you want to punch Sheetrock. It's alright, I'm right there with you, but you can't deny the Witherhoard does its job well. 40 damage per tick in a wide area, what's not to love? Even better is that this weapon will be positively oppressive at locking down the spark spawn point. And we are spicing this up even further by running a Void Warlock with overcharged scatter grenades and an aspect that grants us volatile rounds on grenade kills with the soon to be buffed 600 Void Auto I have here. This build came from a viewer in our live stream chat, which for your own safety, you should definitely come by sometime and suggest a build of your own. But I say that because I felt this build lacked a bit of creative spice. This ran Astrocyte first, which, don't get me wrong, I love Astrocyte, but on a build that's intentionally trying to kind of stay put in an area, it seemed like a bit of a miss. My suggestion if you try this build on your own is to run Nothing Manacles for the double scatter grenade goodness and possibly double volatile rounds. This build is self-explanatory. Fire Witherhoard on objective or crowded areas, swap to your auto for cleanup. Profit. The Astrocyte was nice, but let me show you how the real Astrocyte brain works. Look, this build is over 5 years old or something like that. It's old. It's at least vintage for Destiny builds. I have talked about this build at length, and I'm overwhelmingly excited to get to abuse the sheer dominance of speed this build possesses. In short, Mida multi-tool, Astrocyte verse, blink, and a shotgun. Specifically a slug, as those are probably going to be kind of nasty next season, but I digress. The combination of Mida and a shotgun alone is fantastic because it provides you both high mobility but also incredible adaptability. There are no situations you can't handle well. Its only major weakness, if you could call it that, is that it lacks a really well-defined mid-range. But when you can blink once to change the battle from either short range or long range, do you really need a mid-range? Bungie is going to have a problem with me, because if I want to, I can already blink into the enemy spawn point before they finish their first capture. How are they going to stop me when all I need to do is just touch the enemy rift zone? But as we were streaming, we found something even faster than this. Something that, if it's allowed in Rift, may just outright break the game mode. Glaives are getting a number of buffs, making them hopefully much more powerful and user-friendly than they currently are. This isn't the first time they've tried buffing them though. In the last round of buffs, they increased the shield gain from dealing projectile damage and allowed hunters to cancel their dodges with a Rift melee. At face value, that's not that special, but when combined with the Mask of Thackrus, all of the buffs making Glaives a bit scary, at least on paper, and the severely slept on Cryesthesia, or heck, maybe even the exotic Hunter Glaive, because it will be able to one-shot with its special ability. This Predator Missile of a Hunter build may become the de facto best Rift build. What I'm telling you is that Titanfall 3 has been released as an early access demo to hunters, and you're free to play as long as you've got a Glaive and a Mask of Thackrus. If you're looking to figure out how to do this, I covered a video on it in the past. I'll leave a link to it in the upper right hand corner. For bonus points, run this with a Shatter Dive setup so you can dunk on kids when your private jet reaches its destination. Maybe don't share this with your hunter friends. It's going to take 2 defensive builds to halt the meteor speed progress that hunter build will make on your base. So, rounding off our list, I would like to gently remind you that when Icefall Mantles are combined with the Whisper of Chains, you get an effective health total of 400. In case you missed a few lessons in your 4th grade arithmetic, that's double the health of your normal Guardian. Or, put it another way, that's the same level of survivability as a freaking super. But Misum, I hear you cry, Whisper of Chains is getting nerfed down to only 15%, and to that I say, sweet business does not care. Yes, even though our maximum health pool is being nerfed, we are still a walking tank with an ominous presence that would make a raid boss blush. With the nerfs, this build is losing about 50 total effective health, and if you ask me, That's still really good, considering Sweet Business's optimal TTK is 0.6 seconds when fully spun up, of which you'll have plenty of time to do, and with the reduction in special ammo and damage bonuses, which were the two biggest weaknesses to this build, I challenge, nay, defy you Titan mains to give this one a spin and dare you not to enjoy it. Our last defensive build will make enemies into opportunities. Opportunities to fill kill feeds with overzealous players crowding a spark spawn, shouting mine like the seagulls from Finding Nemo. Cloudstrike, an Osmomancy gloves, and a messenger with Desperado. Even though Desperado will get a nerf next season, its base TTK is still one of the most oppressive in the game. This build does struggle a bit up close, which is why I suggest a freeze rift aspect and a bit of practice on your melees. With the Osmomancy gloves and the Bleak Watcher aspect, you can dominate a space with slows and big bursts of damage. If you can run this in tandem with any of the other defensive builds that we've suggested so far, so you have a little bit more room to work with and deal with long-range targets, you will find some serious success. Share these builds with your friends, subscribe, or don't, I'm not your parents, but regardless, bless your faces and deuces.